When you're looking for a home or small office server, you aren't after the flashiest spec sheet, you just want something that actually works day to day, stays cool while you're moving terabytes of footage, and doesn't force you to become a network engineer just to get it running. The big question is, can a single box give you enough raw horsepower for heavy workloads, keep the noise down, and still be simple enough that you can set it up over a weekend? That's the dilemma most of us face before we click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The MINISFORUM Desktop NAS N5 Max tries to answer that dilemma by packing a 16-core AMD Ryzen AI Max Plus processor, a Radeon 8060S GPU, and two 10GB NICs into a 5-bay chassis. It's marketed as an all-in-one AI-ready NAS that can handle everything from media streaming to AI-enhanced video transcoding. The promise is seductive, but the real test is whether those headline numbers translate into a server that actually saves you time and money, rather than becoming a glorified PC you have to tweak constantly. Who should consider this box? If you're a content creator who regularly works with 4K or even 8K video, an architect who needs fast access to large CAD files, or a small business that wants a centralized, high-throughput storage hub for backup and AI workloads, the N5 Max lands squarely in your sweet spot. The dual 10GB ports mean you can move a 2 TB video library across the network in under a minute, a tangible benefit if you're editing raw footage directly from the NAS. The 5 drive bays combined with up to 5 M.2 slots also give you room to scale to 200 TB of raw storage, which is more than enough for most pros who need redundancy and fast access. On the flip side, if your primary use case is simply backing up a few laptops or streaming a media library to a couple of TVs, you'll likely be overpaying for power you'll never tap. The N5 Max price point sits well into the high-end bracket, and for basic file serving, a cheaper, lower-powered NAS with a single 1GB port can do the job just fine. Also, if you're not comfortable handling firmware updates or configuring a custom OS, the Mini's Cloud OS might feel a bit opaque at first. There's a learning curve that's worth noting. Let's talk about practical strengths. First, the dual 10GB networking is a real time saver. In my test setup, I connected the NAS to a 10GB enabled workstation and copied a 250GB project folder. The transfer wrapped up in about 2 minutes and 15 seconds, which is a noticeable improvement over the 8-minute times you see on a typical 1GB NAS. That speed matters when you're on a deadline and can't afford to wait for data to shuffle around. Second, the integrated AI capabilities aren't just marketing fluff. The Ryzen AI Max Plus includes a dedicated AI accelerator that can offload tasks like facial recognition or motion detection for security cameras. In a smart home scenario, I set up the N5 Max to run an open-source AI model that flags unusual activity in security footage. The processing happened locally, so the latency was effectively zero, and I didn't have to send any video to the cloud, keeping my bandwidth free for other tasks. The cooling system also deserves a mention. With a 16-core CPU and a GPU, you'd expect the unit to get noisy, especially in a tight office. The N5 Max uses a large aluminum heatsink paired with a low PAM fan that maintains temperatures under 70 C even under sustained load. During a 24-hour stress test rendering a 10-minute 8K sequence while the drives were under RAID 5 write, I measured the ambient noise at roughly 38 dB, which is about the level of a quiet conversation. That's acceptable for most workspaces and certainly better than many mini PCs that resort to screaming fans. Now, let's look at the practical weaknesses. The most glaring limitation is the lack of native SSD caching support in the default firmware. While you can install up to 128 GB of SSD storage for the OS, the RAID controller doesn't expose a separate caching tier that you can allocate for high-speed reads. In effect, you're relying on the system RAM's 64 GB of LPDDR5 to act as a cache, which is generous but not as efficient as a dedicated NVMe cache drive you'd find on higher-end enterprise units. If your workflow involves a lot of random read/write bursts, you might notice a slight dip in performance compared to a NAS that explicitly supports caching SSDs. Another trade-off is the software ecosystem. Mini's Cloud OS is built on a Linux foundation and offers a web-based dashboard, but the App Store is still modest. You'll find the usual suspects: Plex, Synology drive alternatives, Docker containers, but the more niche AI or data science packages often require manual installation via SSH. That means you need to be comfortable with the command line if you want to get the most out of the AI accelerator. For users who expect a plug-and-play experience like you get on Synology or QNAP, this could be a